Year 10, I hope you're all well and welcome to week 5 of home learning. I hope last week went well with regards to all the work that I set and using the video alongside it. This week will be very similar, so you'll still have this presentation and I'll go through some of the tasks in more detail than others as I did last week, and you'll still have the instruction sheet that I've set as well. So just do work through that as well, because that goes through all of the questions in a bit more detail than I might do in some of these tasks. So the first slide you can see, can you put your title please, is legislation and business, and in particular it's consumer legislation is what we're looking at this week. So these are our objectives. So we're going to identify the different laws that are involved with the consumer legislation. We're going to explain the importance of consumer legislation for business, and you're then going to apply your knowledge to some exam questions. So this here is our topic list for topic 5, for theme 1. We have done quite a lot of it already. So topic 5 is the last topic in theme 1. So then we'll be moving on to theme 2. So you've already looked at the business stakeholders. Last week we looked at technology and business, and this week, as I said, we're looking at legislation and business, and we're focusing on this part here, so the principles of consumer law, quality and consumer rights. So as I said, I will go through some of the tasks, some in more detail than others, and so please do just pause the video while you do the task and then pick up back up again. So this task here is just a video task to introduce you to consumer legislation. So what I would like you to do is click on the link, it's also in the instructions sheet as well, and answer these questions. I would like you to answer these questions in your books, please. So just pause this video and then watch that clip and answer the questions into your books. This task here, again, is just looking at the consumer legislation, so looking at what is meant by the term, who is protected, etc. So this is about 5 minutes long, so you may have recognised him from ITV anyway, so he does a lot about money matters, and he's a money expert for ITV. So have a look at the clip, and again, answer these questions in your book. If you can write these questions as well into your book and then answer them next to it, that would be great. So here you've got a research task. So the research grid is in the instruction sheet, so you can use that. You can either write in it using the computer or just print it out and write in it. Just make sure that you've got it printed and stuck into your books. And this is a research task, so you will need to research the following consumer protection laws and answer the questions in the grid that is attached. So as I said, either write it or type it, I don't mind. So the links are underneath to take you straight to the right page. So it shouldn't take you too long to do this because I would like you to focus more on the information, on the questions here. So the questions you're looking at is, what does the law mean? What is it used for? You need to give an example of a business that might be affected by it. And then who does this law impact the most? So does it in which customers, for example, would it impact? So the laws that we're going to be looking at is the Trade Descriptions Act 1968, the Consumer Rights Act 2015, the Consumer Credit Act 1974, the Weights and Measures Act 1985, and the Food Safety Act 1990. Okay, so this is going to now be putting your knowledge from the previous task into action. So you are going to need to read through these scenario tasks and then identify which consumer legislation it refers to. So which legislation is the company breaking? And then for the STAR challenge, you need to explain why. So try and use those connectors. This means that, this leads to, what might be an impact from it? So, for example, if we just go for the second one for me, so the owners of Real China restaurant are accused of 100 customers being hospitalised from food poisoning. Now, which legislation would that relate to? Would it relate to the Trade Descriptions Act 1968? Would it lead to the Consumer Rights Act 2015? Would it relate to the Consumer Credit Act 1974? The Weights and Measures Act 1985? Or the Food Safety Act 1990? So you should have found out lots of information from here to then put that into a practice and apply it to this scenario. So with this scenario, if we just go through the answer, so the answer would be the Food Safety Act. You need to explain why. So why would it relate to that? Well, maybe it's because the restaurant aren't adhering to the health and safety of their clients, their customers. Maybe they're not using and wiping down the surfaces quickly enough. Maybe they're allowing bacteria to spread. What would that then how would that then impact the company? So it might impact the company by ensuring that the customers may not want to go back to the restaurant again. It might lead to a bad reputation, etc. Okay, so that's what I'd like you to do in that column there. Try and challenge yourself, Year 10, because I know you can do it. So try and challenge yourself with that column. Okay, so now we're moving on to the exam questions. So you're just going to put your knowledge into practice. You can either do questions 1 and 2, which are both 3-mark questions, or you can do question 3, which is a 6-marker. I don't mind which one you do. You can choose as long as you're doing either questions 1 and 2, or you just do question 6. So in total, you're writing a 6-mark question. What there is on the instruction sheet, there is a structure on the instruction sheet for the 6-mark question if you're struggling with structuring your answer. With a discuss the impact to a business of following consumer legislation, it's a discuss question, which means there's no application needed, so you just need to analyse the question itself, so analysing the impact. The impact means that you can either do the positive or negative. It's not asking for one or the other, it's asking for either one. So whichever one you think would be easier, choose that. With the impact question, because it's not asking if it's a positive or a negative, you can do both. So if you use the 2-point method, you can do one benefit is, one drawback is, for example. Otherwise, just do 1 point and then use 5 connectives. Just make sure, though, Year 10 is if you are going to use a 2-point structure, just make sure that your 2 points are different. They're not going to be too similar and actually you're writing the same thing twice, because you won't get marks for repeating yourself. So make sure that the impacts that you are choosing are clear. Okay, so they're clear impacts and they're clearly different from one another, and they've got different analysis that you're using. We're going to go through just one question here, just so that you have a bit of an idea how to answer it. So explain one benefit to a business of consumer legislation. So explain one benefit means that you're only looking at the benefit, you don't need to talk about the drawback. And explain means you must say this is because. Some of us aren't writing this is because and explaining the benefit or explaining the drawback, and you're just going straight into your analysis. So this means that this leads to. You need to make sure you are explaining it, okay? So you might lose a mark just because you haven't said this is because and explained why that's a benefit. So one benefit to a business of consumer legislation might be a positive reputation. Then you need to explain why. So this is because. So maybe they're having to stick to strict guidelines, and the consumers are more comfortable with going to that company because they feel that they're getting they have a better reputation, and the customers know what they're going to be getting. So use that to help you. Then you can say this means that this leads to. Just make sure that you're explaining your answer, okay? Try not to use the example that I've just gone through. Try and use a different one. You can use that to help you if you'd like, that's absolutely fine, but try to use a different answer. If you have any questions, as always, Year 10, just let me know by email and I'll be more than happy to help. Okay, I hope this helps. Thank you.